Hey everyone, Catalyst Arms here. In this video, RPR Setup Part 2, we'll share some more information how to dial in your precision rifle. Okay, cue the slow motion B-roll. Okay, that's enough of that. You're busy, we're busy, let's get to it. In this video, RPR Setup Part 2, we'll share some tips for getting your rifle squared away, such as adjusting the buttstock and mounting your scope. Okay, the obligatory safety briefing. Make sure the gun is unloaded, chamber empty, magazine removed, bolt back, gun on safe. When setting up your rifle, one of the most important things you can do is take the time to adjust it to fit you properly. Don't fit yourself to the rifle. It's important to do this before you mount your scope. So the first thing you want to adjust is your length of pull. That's the distance between the back of the butt pad and the front of the trigger. The proper length of pull will make the rifle more comfortable to shoot. It'll make it easier to work the action and controls. It'll give you a more consistent cheek weld and a more consistent trigger pull. Adjusting the length of pull on the RPR stock is easy and doesn't require tools. Simply release the levers at the back of the stock and then move the butt plate forward or backward to adjust your length of pull. So one way to estimate your length of pull is to place the butt pad into the crook of your arm and see if you can reach the grip. So this is a good place to start. Get your rifle in your natural shooting position. See if your head can naturally fall onto the stock. See how the grip feels. See where your trigger finger lines up on the trigger, and if you can access your controls. Now this is a bit short, so on the RPR it's simply a matter of, again, releasing these locking levers, bringing this out a few notches, locking the stock in place again, and now we have a much more natural grip. We have a better placement for our trigger finger to pull the trigger straight back, easy access to the bolt knob, magazine release, cartridges on the side for PRS type matches, as well as the ejection port in case we have to clear malfunctions and anything else we might need. Once the length of pull is adjusted, just make sure you've cammed the levers back into place. You need to line up one of the ridges on the butt pad rod that goes into the stock with the back bracket for the butt stock. That's going to make it much easier to work the levers. So another tip that's handy is with a paint pen or with a scribe, write down how many of these notches is appropriate for your length of pull. That way, if you have to give the gun to somebody else to shoot, or if you have to adjust your length of pull for an unusual shooting position, you can immediately get it back to your proper length of pull with just remembering that number on the back of the stock. With your length of pull adjusted, you're now ready to mount your scope. There are a few things that are critical when mounting your optic. Proper placement for your eye relief, making sure the reticle is level with the rifle, and also properly torquing your rings and bases. Before mounting the scope, check to make sure your base screws are properly torqued. We covered this in RPR Setup Part 1. You watched that already, right? If not, you should. It's worth watching. We'll have the link somewhere below in the description or in one of the cards that appears on the screen. We'll be mounting one of our Leupold Mark V HDs. We've been using these in our RPRs and they've been fantastic. They have great glass, they track exceptionally well, they have plenty of adjustment, they're lighter than many scopes in their class, they've just all around been a really great scope for us. You'll need to decide what kind of rings or mount you want to use. Two-piece rings, like these Leupold Mark IV rings, or a single-piece scope mount with integral rings. There's a lot of great products out there. Leupold, Seekins, Warren, Spur, American Rifle Company, the list goes on and on. The important thing is just make sure you use a quality mount or set of scope rings. There are two caveats to mounting a scope on the Ruger Precision Rifle. It's designed with roughly the same comb height as an AR-15, so you'll want to use AR height rings or scope mounts. You want to have your scope high enough so you can raise the cheek piece to get perfect alignment of your eye with the scope. If you use rings that are too low, you can't get a full sight picture without canting your head or mashing your cheek onto the stock. Just use AR height rings. You'll be glad you did. The other caveat is that most one-piece AR mounts are cantilever mounts. You don't need this with the RPR. The only reason to use a cantilever mount is for something like an AR-15 where one ring needs to be forward of the receiver. Try to use dedicated scope rings or a scope mount that's not cantilevered. Okay, moving on. When setting up your rings, if you can, try to position them roughly in the centers of the scope tube sections. Doesn't have to be exact, but that's where you want them. When attaching the rings to the rail, put the recoil lug to the forward part of the cross slot. You want it touching the back of one of the ridges on the Picatinny rail. So put your ring on and then make sure it's pushed forward so the recoil lug contacts the back part of the Picatinny rail. When your gun recoils, the gun comes back and the scope wants to go forward. That's why you want the rings pushed all the way forward in the cross slot on your Picatinny rail. Loosely install your scope in the scope rings. You want it so you can still rotate the scope and move the scope back and forth so you can adjust the reticle and you can adjust the eye relief. With your scope on the rifle and still able to rotate and move forward and back, you can now adjust the eye relief. Eye relief is the distance between your ocular lens and your eye. You want to do this with the scope on its maximum magnification. Because of the eye box, when adjusted properly, you'll have a full sight picture throughout the entire range of magnification. To adjust your eye relief, get behind the rifle in your natural shooting position and move the scope forward or back until you have a complete sight picture. As you move it forward and back, you'll notice your field of view increase or decrease. Just slide the scope forward or back until you have the greatest field of view. Once you find this spot, your scope is properly set for your eye relief. One of the most important aspects of mounting your scope, in particular for precision rifle, is making sure the reticle is level in relation to the gun. Otherwise, the center line of the bore will be horizontally offset from the center line of the scope. This will cause point of impact error right or left. The error will increase the further from the target. We have a great technical article about this on our website. Check it out when you have a chance. The link's below. There are many ways to level your scope. Fortunately, we have one of the new scope jacks from Fix-It Sticks. This goes under the scope, then you simply raise the lifting bar. It contacts the flat part of the turret housing and levels the scope. The nice thing about it is, you maintain pressure on the scope jack and it keeps the scope level as you properly torque the rings. So in mounting your scope, it's critical to use the proper torque specifications. In this instance, these loopholed Mark IV rings use 25 inch-pounds. Follow your manufacturer's recommended torque specifications and you'll avoid damaging your scope and your rings will stay tightly fastened. So to adjust your cheek piece, what you're looking for is you want your eye to be perfectly lined up with the scope. So what you want to do is loosen the cheek piece lever, adjustment lever. Let your cheek naturally come to rest on the rifle and see if your head is too high or too low to properly line it behind the scope. In this instance, we're a little bit low, so we're simply going to raise the cheek piece up until we have a complete sight picture. That looks good. Then simply lock the lever in place, and now your cheek piece is properly adjusted. Okay, our scope is properly mounted. Our eye relief is set, the reticle is level, and our rings and mount are properly torqued. We're ready to zero the rifle and gather load data, but we'll cover that in another setup video. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you found this video helpful, please hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and check out our website for more technical information, blog posts, and product info. Thanks again. Stay safe.